Now, this is getting extremely confusing, okay? Because yesterday, Raila Odinga was involved in the third handshake. Now, while this handshake has baffled most Kenyans are better off than one Kalonzo Musyoka, who has been deeply embarrassed. A local cartoonist has captured this embarrassment perfectly, okay? And in a nutshell, this is what it is. When Raila Odinga was involved in the first handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta, the belief was that we were headed to another arrangement very similar to the 2007 arrangement, a kind of power-sharing agreement and nothing more. And this is why people like Kalonzo Musyoka were very eager to shake Uhuru Kenyatta's hand, because they wanted a share in the cake. Yeah, they wanted to be part of the power-sharing arrangement. And so, playing old politics, Kalonzo Musyoka rushed back to his community, rallied his tribe around him, used even religious leaders, and even got a green light from the community to vie for the presidency in 2022, meaning that this power-sharing arrangement was supposed to be like a launching pad for him, into the 2022 race for the presidency. Now, some very high-profile religious leaders from the Kamba community, including Arthur Gitonga, have come out and dismissed this Kalonzo Musyoka deal with the Kamba community, saying it was just a selfish thing and it had nothing to do with what was facing the community as a whole. Anyway, that was what the thought was. And as Kalonzo Musyoka was busy playing his cards, believing that he's on top of the game, Raila went and shook Moi's hand. Even Moi is going to be in this power-sharing agreement. Emergency breaks for Kalonzo Musyoka. And even as he was trying to figure out what's happening, now Raila's shaken Kibaki's hand. What? Kuchanganyikiwa naye. Now, to be fair to the former vice president, Bwana Kalonzo Musyoka, he is not the only person who has been caught unawares. The DP Ruto camp has also been in 6s and 7s. They can't figure out what's going on. So what is really going on here? What is happening? Now, apart from the inside information I have, we have plenty of clues to go on, okay? But before we go into the common thread in all these handshakes, let's focus a little on this latest one. The big difference with this latest one is that it is no doubt the most high-powered delegation handshake. In attendance were 3 sitting governors. Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko, Laikipia Governor Nderitu Mureithi. By the way, the Laikipia Governor is also a nephew to the retired President Moi Kibaki. And the third governor was, of course, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, the Kisumu Governor. And then there was the head of the public service, Bwana Joseph Kinyua, okay? And he was accompanied by somebody else from State House, Bwana Stephen Kirogo. Kirogo, of course, is the Principal Administrative Secretary in the Executive. Whatever that means. The long and short of it is that Bwana Kirogo is very close to the president. One of the people who see the president very, very regularly. Also in attendance was Bwana Paul Mwangi. Bwana Paul Mwangi has been Raila Odinga's lawyer for a very long time. And then there was also the retired president's most trusted son, Jimmy Kibaki. Well, one thing is for sure. With this kind of high-powered delegation, and looking at the people who attended this very private meeting, we can only come to the conclusion that this was not a courtesy call. There were very serious matters being discussed, extremely serious. Now let's start with 2 individuals whose presence at the meeting can be very easily explained. And these are Nderitu Mureithi, the governor for Laikipia, and Jimmy Kibaki, the former president's son. Now, there's a very important piece of information which I believe is in the public domain, which most analysts have ignored or missed. And this is the fact that the former president is not well. What exactly do I mean? Okay. Can I take you back to the funeral of the former Nyeri governor, Nderitu Gachagua? Yeah. And the speech the former president gave at that funeral. Now, it is extremely normal for politicians to give speeches and say absolutely nothing. Yeah, do a lot of talking, even for 30 minutes, but end up saying zero. However, even then, they'll be on point. Okay, they'll be discussing the issue at hand. They'll be talking about the event at hand. Now, the difference is that at the former Nyeri governor's funeral, Kibaki was not on point. Indeed, at the end of his speech, nobody had any inkling of an idea what he had been talking about. The former president displayed classic symptoms of something the medical professionals call dementia, loss of memory, or as the Brits would say, loss of wits. You will remember that some Kenyans really laughed at the whole episode. They found it very amusing, while other Kenyans were extremely livid at the fact that people would be amused. I mean, when your father grows old and starts talking things you don't understand, you don't laugh. Yeah, that's a sign of disrespect. Okay, you just pretend you understand, and according to African culture, you just don't talk about it. And in any case, somebody's medical challenges are not a laughing matter. Okay? Anyway, the long and short of what I'm trying to say is that people never recover from those kind of symptoms. Okay? And that explains the presence of the president's son, Jimmy Kibaki. What about Bwana Nderitu Murithi? Well, it is said that Bwana Murithi has inherited the former president's political constituents. Now we'll go on a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll break this down further. Okay? Please don't go away. Welcome back. What is the common thread with all these three handshakes? Apart from the fact that all three private meetings seem to have taken approximately 2 hours, that absolutely tells us nothing, yeah? But it's interesting. It's an interesting tidbit. Apart from that, Raila Odinga told us, and indeed the president also told us, that what they were doing in this first handshake was bringing Kenyans together, uniting all Kenyans together so that nobody feels left out. Now, how do you go about doing that? Number one, it is impossible, to bring people together unless first of all you start by addressing the reason why they are not together. For instance, there are these two couples, they are apart, they've been living apart, and now you're trying to reconcile them, get the wife to go back to the husband, okay? Well, we live in a modern world, so it could also be getting the husband to go back to the wife. I mean, mulikosana, but the house belongs to the wife. The cars belong to the wife, the bank account belongs to the wife, etc., etc. So if you have a problem, who's going to be kicked out? The man. Anyway, let me not let me not go off topic. So you're trying to bring these two people back together. Where do you start? You start with where the problem started. Yeah. What was the marital problem? Yeah. What am I talking about? You start with the historical injustices in that marriage. The wife may start with the following historical injustice. Alikuwa nabeba malaya na gari yangu. Loosely translated, he was carrying prostitutes in my car. You can't bring Kenyans together again unless you go back to where things went wrong. That's historical injustices. Okay? Now, when we look at this third handshake or the third private meeting, and we note the presence of a man called Professor Nyang'yo, the governor of Kisumu, it starts to make perfect sense. The good professor in recent times has taken the front seat, has taken the front line in fighting for the recognition of historical injustices against the Luo community. Let's go to the second handshake. You cannot address historical injustices without covering the presidency of the longest serving president in the Republic of Kenya, retired President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. And if Jomo Kenyatta was still alive, it would have made perfect sense for the fourth handshake to be with Jomo Kenyatta. But Jomo Kenyatta still has a family, and indeed his son is the current president of the Republic of Kenya. Okay? Now, if you're going to touch on historical injustices, the presence of a lawyer is important. And that explains the presence of Bwana Paul Mwangi. Now, we already have a Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report. A very voluminous piece of work, which a lot of Kenyans have said is excellent. Okay? And currently it's gathering dust. So anybody who wants to push forward this agenda will have already fished out that document from where it was gathering dust. And my guess is, at the moment, that document has become full of thumbprints, people going through it. After years of neglect, okay? Now, some of you might be sitting there and saying, no, there's nothing like that. No, it can't be, okay? Fine. You tell me how you're going to bring Kenyans together without addressing historical injustices. Just tell me. I believe it is impossible. Okay? And this also neatly explains why these handshakes have all been preceded by very private meetings. And the proceedings of these meetings have never leaked out. Okay? The closest we have come is that people have said it is something to do with the handshake. Okay? You'll notice that in all these handshakes, all these other two handshakes, you'll notice people say, according to insider sources, it is something to do with the handshake. Okay? The initial handshake, the first handshake. If my information is correct, then ladies and gentlemen, my dear fellow Kenyans, we are about to go through something which is totally unprecedented in our country. We are about to embark on what has widely been recognized and seen as mission impossible. I say mission impossible because the political class, the people who own Kenya, have fought tooth and nail to ensure that historical injustices are never addressed. Historical injustices, or rather addressing those historical injustices, terrify the people who own Kenya. Why? Let me just put it very bluntly. The minute you mention historical injustices, the first thing these people think about is their property, their money, their wealth. Now, the way they did it in South Africa should be of great interest to Kenyans right now. Okay? After apartheid, they had a truth, justice, and reconciliation arrangement whereby those who had committed crimes, okay, would come forward, confess those crimes, so as to give the families of those affected, because in most cases there were deaths involved, so as to give the families of those affected closure over their loved ones, over various issues. Now, it was not perfect. Of course, these things are never perfect, okay? But it went a long way in healing the country, okay? Now, of course, there are people like Winnie Mandela, the late Winnie Mandela, who never bought into such an arrangement, okay? Those were radicals who believed in 100% restitution, yeah? That means that all the people who are responsible for crimes during those days were supposed to pay for them. Yeah, it was not just a matter of confessing and tunasahau hiyo maneno. However, the first question one would want to ask is, how practical is that? Of course, it's not practical. And so, this is the big news for Kenyans. If it is indeed true historical injustices are going to be addressed, then it means there must be partial restitution. Restitution can never be 100%. Yeah? And now it makes perfect sense why this meeting is also private, and why it has been so important that whatever is discussed in this meeting is never ever leaked out. It would seem that the political class have sensed something dangerous. Yeah, they've sensed the danger. Yeah, because it seems that the people of Kenya are circling around. Yeah, are circling around them, and they're baying for blood. Okay, and therefore this latest initiative by Raila Odinga is to preempt what seems to be the inevitable. In my view, it may be too little, too late. But let me not pour cold water on it. Let's just wait and see how it develops. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.